So in this video, I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to review the week of wrestling that I've just watched. I've watched the first week of wrestling that I've watched since probably about 2005. And with that, I mean watching full from start to finish every program that's been on. So this week it's been Raw, SmackDown, Saturday Night Main Event, Collision, and Dynamite. Then I'm going to give them a rating after that. So apologies if I come off a little bit weird in this one, because I'm a little bit out of my comfort zone. This one, I've got quite a few notes in front of me, and I'm going to try and link it back to cards as well at the end, kind of saying like who I think has had a good week in terms of like maybe their card value. So, just a little bit of background as well. We've got WWE on Netflix now. In the UK, we've got AEW on ITV, which is free TV in the UK, so we can watch everything, which is really good. And it feels like for the first time in a while, it's kind of been a bit exciting to do that. I think that gives me some little bits of maybe, I don't know if you call them biases, I don't know if you call them naiveties. I might have the blinkers on because I've not watched wrestling so intensely for a while. I always watch the pay-per-views. I do watch weekly shows every now and again. I catch up with a lot of the content, like the short form content on YouTube, so that kind of ruins it a little bit maybe sometimes. I had some surprises from what I watched this week. There were some very interesting surprises. Some things impressed me more than I thought they were going to, and some things didn't impress me as much as I was hoping that they would do. So, first show I watched was Raw. So I'm going to give some running notes. They kind of go in order, but I might bounce around a little bit. But I do have some thoughts and feelings about like the production and that type of thing as well. So, firstly, started off with Rey Mysterio versus new heel Kofi Kingston. I didn't think it was great. There were some botches, but I don't really mind botches though, as much as a lot of other people mind botches. But I felt like there should have been a DQ at a point, and there wasn't kind of a DQ. It felt like LWO should have potentially been at ringside. I never understand like why the heels are just allowed at ringside, but then the friends of the other wrestler are not there. So kind of stands out being a bit poor. That it didn't kind of fit. I also noticed at that point it felt like we were stuck between nostalgia and like a kids' TV show as well. So lots of callbacks to the past, which is going to appeal to an older audience, but then lots of kids stuff as well. And like Kofi said something about pissing him off, and then Michael Cole said something, referred to something, pissed someone off, and it felt like, and that was mentioned on one of the other shows. Well, it felt like now the floodgates are open for WWE to say pissing me off, which felt a bit weird, to be honest, especially when you've got lots of lots of other still you would say kind of more or less mature content going on. Next, Karrion Kross doing the I don't know what you call them, like the stadium interview, like where you can just see all the crowd behind him. They look fantastic. They look like a really good setup. Just a shame nobody cares about Karrion Kross though. I like Karrion Kross, and I think it is a bit of a shame. CM Punk did one later on, which was much better received, but you got like an entrance and then so on, and that's what I remember, that they always had the entrance and they walked over, like when Ultimate Warrior, $1 Million Man, Sensational Sherry were there. They seem to have entrances, but it just seems to cut to Karrion Kross, and nobody really cared, so it kind of just fell a little bit flat. Next one, Nia Jax versus Bayley. I didn't think I would enjoy it. I actually did. I really dislike Nia Jax in like I don't think she's a good wrestler. She's very much turning me. Rhea Ripley coming out. Rhea Ripley's an absolute star, more than I thought she was already, and I do already have high praise. But for me, it was Nia Jax was quite impressive in this match, and she does have a good showing later on as well. I was quite impressed with Nia Jax. Hopefully, I can pin it down a little bit, kind of more as to why that will be. Next one, Pete Dunne versus Penta. Firstly, Pete Dunne got cut off, and it feels like they put the adverts. It feels like they're giving a promo or they're doing something, and then it cuts to an advert, something like that, for minutes, and it cuts back, and then they're just stood in the ring, which feels really weird. It felt like multiple times throughout the week on the WWE programming that the wrestlers were just stood in the middle of the ring probably for all the advert. I don't know what they do in the middle, like of an advert, but yeah, it just felt a bit awkward. Some of them, they don't even have microphones throughout some of it. I think Motor City Machine Guns, they had one where they came in and then there was an advert and then it cuts back and they're just still stood there with their music playing, which feels a bit strange. Really good match. Penta, fantastic. Impressed with Penta. I was a fan of his from previous. He's entrance is incredible. I really do think they've stepped it up with his entrance. It gives him very much a great aura. It'll be interesting to see where Penta goes once kind of the initial honeymoon period has worn off a little bit. Next thing that stood out to me, though, I think they announced kind of what some of the format of the night, but it felt like there was no Cody Rhodes, there's no Roman Reigns, there's no Finn Balor. I know he's possibly on the injured list, or the kind of the mock injured list from last time. No Bloodline, only a little bit of CM Punk. Feels like we're missing quite a few stars. Like there's not too much star power in it. But the Royal Rumble match is building really good. There's lots of big stars in the Royal Rumble match, which is really interesting. They also did a signs of the night, where the audience held up different signs. I thought that was really good. I've missed signs over the last kind of 10, 15, 20 years, and high quality signs, so it's good to see that coming back and being appreciated. Next, I've just made a note that says Zoe Stark dropkick, exclamation. One of the most brutal dropkicks I've ever seen. Fantastic dropkick. I think it was on Dakota Kai, who I watched a little bit of the, I watched a lot of the show from the week before, which I was very impressed with. She was in the first women's intercontinental title match and lost, and she got absolutely drop kicked out of her boots this week. I'm hoping for good stuff for Dakota Kai, because I feel a bit bad for her. I feel like she had a couple of rough weeks, but she's put in good showings. I did also put that they were against Shayna Baszler and it was Zoe Stark. So Shayna Baszler, last time I seen Shayna Baszler properly was when she was absolutely dominant in NXT, and she looks an absolute shadow of herself, a shell of herself to what she's now. No danger whatsoever. She looks like you could blow her over. I don't know what's happened to Shayna Baszler, but quite an average match apart from that drop kick, so wasn't massively impressed by that. Next, Seth Rollins versus Drew McIntyre. Good match, good main event, solid main event. Good commentary as well. I like the commentary from Wade Barrett, and he analysed the characters and their motivations, and he read stuff into it, which I really enjoyed. I thought that was a very good touch, and it added to the story of it. And then other thoughts on Raw, which I've already mentioned one of them, was those massive gaps after the entrances that it feels like there's big adverts, or they cut to the shots of the city, or they cut to the shots of somewhere else and like other parts of the arena, and then it cuts back and they're just stood in the ring and they look a bit strange, to be honest. So there's a production kind of issue. It took me out of it a little bit, that. But I did like the shots of the city. WWE did the best job of like making it feel like an event, and it really did feel like an event. Those shows that they put on. So that's it's good to know where the events was and that type of stuff. So next was NXT. Not that impressed with NXT. It's been a while since I watched NXT, and it's probably the most attention that I've ever paid to the. I know it's NXT 2.0. I don't know if it's still known as NXT 2.0, but that kind of new arena and that setup. This is the first show that I've watched from this, but I did watch the pay-per-view before. I can't remember what it's called, but the one where Obafemi won the title, so I am slightly familiar. Ridge Holland versus Tony D'Angelo. I just put, didn't really do too much for me. Strangely enough, though, I am re-watching The Sopranos for the first time. I watched it a good while ago, all the way through, and I'm just started re-watching it. And the way I like they're a crime family, and they refer to Tony D'Angelo as T. That came across fairly well, actually. It was quite nice. Booker T on commentary. I'm a big fan of Booker T and everything he stands for and everything he did and everything he represents. Not a big fan of his commentary, shouting kind of silly things. He's got a very dominant voice as well. It just drowns everything out. So yeah, Booker T's commentary got on me a little bit. I wasn't too impressed with that. Next, we had women's interaction. I think it was in the locker room. One thing I did notice about the women, especially in WWE, with the exception of a few, say Rhea Ripley being one of them, they feel so like generic. Every single one of them, it feels like there's the good ones that are just like good and they do good things, and then there's the bad ones that are all just the same arrogant persona. There doesn't feel to be any difference in the personalities. You're either just like kind of virtuously good or arrogantly bad, and there's no kind of middle ground with it. I didn't feel like there was too much middle ground. There's characters like Bayley that have got a lot to say and they stand out as being different, but so many of those females, they just seemed exactly the same. which was a bit not great, really. Next one was Dion Lennox versus Wes Lee. And I've put down first time that I've ever seen or heard of Dion Lennox, and he made a really good impression. Wes Lee, I felt like he had something about him. I've seen one or two of these matches before, but he's got something about him, and I feel like he should be ready for the call-up, really, like to get onto the main roster. He did seem just a level apart. So yeah, that was good. And Trick, is it Trick Williams as well? I've not seen too much Trick Williams, but again, he's got that same aura, like there's something different about them ones. They feel like they're just a bit of a step up. Next one, I've got Lexis King versus Clint Dempsey. Didn't stand out in any way for me in the slightest, but it's good to see them. And again, it's probably worth mentioning Brian Pillman, one of my favourites. When I first started watching wrestling, when I was like 5, 6, it was on Granada in the UK. It was on the free TV. I wasn't posh enough to have Sky and get WWF at the time. Brian Pillman and Barry Windham and those WCWs from 90 and 91, those were my favourites at the time. So yeah, it's really good to kind of see the son of Brian Pillman doing well for himself as well. I did put a note though on this that both the women's match and the tag match, they seem too fast paced, and it feels like it's too fast paced for the wrestlers as well that are in there, and they kind of miss a step, or it doesn't quite look like it gels as much as it should because they're trying to go too fast, which doesn't really add anything to the match anyway. So just a little note that I felt like they needed to step it back a little bit. Next one was the title match. Obafemi looked good. Eddie Thorpe looked like a jobber to me. I've never really seen much of Eddie Thorpe. Again, it's probably just me missing some stuff because I don't really watch it. I'm sure he's had his moments definitely, but he didn't look bad, but he didn't look in the slightest like he was a championship contender to me. So I thought it would have been good to have seen the build up. And for someone coming in fresh, it's like I didn't understand why Eddie Thorpe was in a title match. I didn't understand kind of what the history was there or why he's like a danger to the champion. And he didn't seem like a danger to the champion, which not necessarily a bad thing. Obafemi come up looking good. Didn't really feel like a title match though. Didn't really feel too special. Not that it didn't feel like a title match, it probably did, but it didn't feel like a big deal that it was a title match. Maybe just because he's a new champion. So quite an average show, really, which is probably surprising as there's a title match on there. A couple of other notes I put on there. Bailey has definitely got an aura about her. She's got a confidence about her that it felt like everybody else was putting on a performance, but it felt like she was being herself, which was entertaining. I didn't get the hype, and again, I've only seen her not too much to really make an informed judgment, but I didn't get the hype with Roxanne Perez as well. The crowd noise was annoying because I think they were booing a lot, and then she had a really high-pitched voice as well, which was quite annoying and great. It was just difficult to watch a little bit of it, and it felt like as well, and I don't know if I just put this for NXT because I know there was one or the amount of them, but security split ups. It feels like I think there was one on Raw with Nia Jax as well. I think that was at the point, and then this show had a security split up where they get split up and then they go back together. But 2 shows in a row, that probably isn't right. It feels a bit strange that. Next, we had AEW Collision. So this is 3rd show of the week. I watched it straight after NXT as well. I didn't take a break in between, and it was a massive difference. But from NXT, even though there was probably not that many more people kind of difference in the crowd, it felt like a huge difference. So started out with Hangman Adam Page versus Christopher Daniels, and the whole feeling of the whole show was just very different. It's a Texas death match for one. It's a much more mature product, it felt like a much more serious product. They did have promos at the start which felt like the old Saturday Night Main Event promos, which I was really impressed with, to be honest. I thought they come across well. Another note on production, Hangman Adam Page's music is fantastic. It really suits his character, and Adam Page is on another level, I think, at the moment. I think he had a really good year last year. I think he was the wrestler of the year last year, to be honest. Him and Swerve, especially in that feud, but his entrance, his aura is absolutely spot on. He's perfect. He really does come across like a bit of a crazy psycho. I did put, though, it felt strange. It was Texas Deathmatch for Christopher Daniels, which it felt strange seeing such a violent match for such a small audience. That doesn't feel quite right. It was a violent match as well, and it was a great match, but it felt like it should have been a pay-per-view match. I don't know why these matches are not, but it might build into a bigger point kind of later on. And I put in the notes not a weekly B show opener, which felt really strange as well. This is, in my opinion, kind of going into it, this is like the B show when they're opening with an amazing Texas Death Match. But maybe, and again, this is moving forward, maybe Collision isn't a B show because it was absolutely incredible. I thought it was really good. So great match, but it should have been a pay-per-view match, especially as it might have been Christopher Daniels' last match as well. So it should have been a bit more of a bigger setup. But again, we don't know the conclusion to that story at the moment. And there was one moment as well, like that Zoe Stark dropkick, where I like to focus on moments. They was doing the count up to 10, and he got to 9, and Hangman Adam Page actually shot up and looked so angry that he'd been put down for a 9 count, and it was a moment. He played it really well. Like, he was annoyed. I mean, he was angry that he had stayed down for a 9 count, and he like angrily got up. Great match, fantastic match, really enjoyed that one. Next one was Tony Storm interview with Tony Schiavone. It felt like at this point, it felt like NXT needed interviews where it's just one-on-one interview, somebody interviewing somebody else rather than groups of wrestlers talking to each other. And felt like NXT maybe needed more than that. But Tony Storm, I think, is the female wrestler of 2024 of last year as well. Her and Rhea Ripley, which is interesting. So I remember them kind of breaking for NXT together at the same time. But I think they were the best wrestlers of 2024 as well from the female side. And Tony Storm is just super entertaining. Next one was who came out was Undisputed Kingdom, Kyle O'Reilly, Adam Cole and Roderick Strong. And what I put from that is, because I don't watch it every week, I've lost track of how many times they're together and they're not together, and it felt a bit cheap seeing them together now, because I remember that they was together and then they split up, and now and I've just lost track of that. So maybe they need a bit of consistency, but it felt like my worry is that are they all past their prime now? Are they just grouping together because they don't have too much else to do? I don't know, but hopefully that's not the case. I do kind of like them from a single perspective. I also put, especially when Adam Cole's music comes on, theme musics are awesome in AEW. Even Elton John on the theme song as well. Very good music, and it's not just that kind of standard wrestling music, but it feels like sometimes WWE has now. Like, they're very Hangman Adam Page's music is fantastic. Adam Cole's music is fantastic. The theme music is like a licensed music. Like, it felt like they're doing a really good job of that side of the production. Next was, I put the Shane Taylor group. I'm not sure if it's the group or organisation or something, but I'm unfamiliar with them. But I did notice, though, that they cleared, and I only noticed at this point, they cleared or maybe put a different ring mat on the ring mat from the first match. It was full of blood. So yeah, they've hid the blood somehow. And I've put that Roderick Strong, it gives me Dean Malenko vibes, which is very much a compliment. But I've never actually seen Roderick Strong do anything that particularly impressive. I think, is it more Ring of Honor stuff, which I've never really watched Ring of Honor. But yeah, I'd like to see Roderick Strong do something in that vein, really. After the match, I've put a strange sequence with Shane and the commentator, which was that, I can't remember what he's called now, but the New York guy, he just went over and seemed to have a problem with him, and I didn't understand why. And then the commentator seemed to get very brave, and I didn't understand why. And then Daniel Garcia came out, and I didn't understand why. So it felt like they could have maybe done a bit of a better job of explaining all that about what's kind of going on from there. Then next match was a tag match, which felt like a bit of a squash match. So it was Brian Cage and Lance Archer. I thought it was against jobbers, and then I seen Dante Martin, who I've not seen too much of. I know he had a bad injury, but I thought he was like a really good, the next big thing kind of thing, like he was going to be really good. And now it seems like he's in a very kind of mid to lower tag team. So I don't know what's happened to Dante Martin, but it seems like he's lost a lot of momentum. After that, good interview with the Learning Tree, hyping up the main event. No problem with that whatsoever. Just on Jericho as well. Don't retire Jericho. Nothing wrong with Jericho. I've seen that he had I didn't watch it, but I seen the clip where he had a botched ending. The guy's been wrestling for about 30, 40 years. let him off with 1 or 2. He's been absolutely excellent throughout. In terms of, maybe we don't want to see him in main events every week, one-on-ones, but in terms of 6-mans and stuff like that, or 12-man tag matches, and kind of being on the sidelines and being part of a tag match, phenomenal. Keep Jericho. Crikey, I was there for the Attitude Era. One of the greatest moments in wrestling was Jericho's entrance. I remember watching it on VHS because I had to record it. I remember rewinding about 4 or 5 times and watching it. It was that good. So I'm not going to sit here now and say that he should be retiring. It's going to be younger people that maybe don't appreciate everything that he's done that are going to kind of have that side. But hey, everybody's got their own opinion, I guess. Next one was Max Caster. I felt like he's got an overly simplistic gimmick, so it was like the ending of the Acclaimed, which is nice. It's good that they seem to end it in that way. Tag teams, they don't always end it in that way, kind of where they're not amicable, but they discuss it and then decide we're not going to be a tag team anymore. But it felt like he's got an overly simplistic gimmick where he's just saying he's the best wrestler alive, I think it is. Hopefully, though, with his charisma, he can make it work, but it did seem a bit like, you seem to be really intelligent previously, and now you've just gone down a route of being like really like overly arrogant. It felt like a step back in the intelligence kind of department. Next one was Tomohiro Ishii, if I've pronounced it right, versus Okada. I felt like I was being treated at that point. So like, I'm aware I've watched a couple of Wrestle Kingdoms. So I possibly have watched one of his matches before, but I don't really recall it because they're just one match after another. There's stacked cards. But I felt like I was being treated. I felt like it was my first Tomohiro Ishii match. And it felt like a treat, but throwaway as well. It felt like I didn't know. And again, there was a Shibata match not too long ago that feels like these are on paper like classic matches, like the absolutely fantastic matches. Maybe it's been done to death in Japan, I'm not too sure. But it felt like a bit of a throwaway match. And it was a title match as well. Didn't really feel like a title match though, although it also didn't really feel like a B show when you're having matches like this as well. I put great hard-hitting match, predictable outcome though. It didn't feel like Okada was really in much danger. Didn't feel like a title match, or WWE seems to make title matches feel more special, it felt like. Next one was, again, probably a weird moment just for me. Dustin Rhodes came out and introduced him as the natural Dustin Rhodes. Again, going back to that WCW 1990 where I first got into it, Dustin Rhodes was one of the ones, well, maybe not my absolute favourite, but he was a good guy. He was one of the ones that I really liked. So to see him introduced as the natural, which I've not seen him introduced as the natural for 30 years probably, so that felt pretty good, to be honest. And I've actually just watched, it's on the WWE Vault YouTube channel, it's Dusty Rhodes versus Macho Man, and then it's where $1 Million Man comes in and buys all the front row, and Dustin Rhodes, the natural Dustin Rhodes, is sat in the front in the audience, and you kind of get to see him there. He's introduced to the ref at the time audience there, so it felt like a nice callback to that. But yeah, no, good, and he came across really well. He had a good match, good solid match. I like that. Yeah, no, happy with that. Next one was Julia versus Harley. What stood out to me with this one is the opposite personalities that they've got with that. And again, watching coming from NXT, where we've got that just everybody's either arrogant or virtuously good. Like, it felt like they had personality. Julia coming in, I don't know if I've put anything like it, but she's very calmly singing a theme music while she's walking to the ring. It just felt different. Harley just feels like an absolute oddball, but wouldn't look like an oddball. So yeah, they come across as having really good personalities in there. Yeah, and I put good match for that one. Julia Hartman came away with the victory. And then the main event, 12-man tag match. Never would really excite me, 12-man tag match, but it was actually really fun. Death Riders had a good entrance, and they've got presence as well. But I did put that John Moxley doesn't feel like the champion though, but I don't know if that's the point of the Death Riders and what they're doing. Not a big fan of multi-man matches, but that was actually really enjoyable. I liked that, and it led to another match kind of the week after too, which was good on Dynamite maybe. Next one was Dynamite. So we've had 3 shows. This is the 4th show. And we've got felt very big to open up with, to have Omega versus Ospreay face off coming out first. It felt like, to me, I remember when I was a teenager in the Attitude Era, I was always excited to see like who would come out first and who they would call out first. That doesn't always seem to happen now, but it felt like that was like a magic moment, that because these are two of the best wrestlers, if not the two best wrestlers in the world, and they got into an incredible brawl with I forgot what it's called now, the Don Callis group, family, whatever they're called, that had an incredible conclusion as well. I thought it was a magical opener with very good presence with it as well. Next one, we had a John Moxley. I think it was a backstage promo. It's good, but you mentioned he was building something, but again, I don't know what he's building. And then maybe they could do a better job of explaining kind of what they're getting towards. It doesn't really feel like they're doing that much. Next one, Hurt Syndicate versus Private Party. I really liked this match. Felt a lot more like a title match than the Okada Ishii match from Collision, so I was happy that they seem to have done a better job with that. MVP's fantastic as well. Does a great job, and I'd like to see the Hurt Syndicate get more members and take over, essentially. I think that'd be pretty good to see. Just feel like there's a lot of kind of, I don't want to say gangs, but there's a lot of the Hurt Syndicate, the Don Callis family, like there's a lot of groups, the Learning Tree with Jericho, there's a lot of groups in AEW, which I think is pretty good actually. I'm quite impressed with, really, don't mind that. Lashley, the most over that I've seen Lashley, probably ever. I think I did watch Hey EW as well, with RJ City, and the Hurt Syndicate were on that this week. Yeah, I think he's in the right place at the moment, but I think he should do more after this tag match as well. I think this is maybe the place where he can step out even more than what he did in WWE. Felt like a good moment when Hurt Syndicate won as well, but it feels like they're meant to be heels, but they get cheered a little bit. It'd be interesting what happens to Private Party next as well, because they've been together for a good while. I've got their cards from the initial 2021 set. So yeah, it'd be good to see what happens to them next, because they might be over their run. It feels like they've run its course, Private Party, a little bit now. Next one, Tony Storm and Harley promo. Good build up to the Tony and Mariah May match, which is building up, which also feels like it should be a pay-per-view. Now, I did put as well, in fact, I'll leave that for in a second. So it'll be interesting to see how big Grand Slam will be, because that's where it's building to, I think. It stood out to me how offbeat the characters are. So Mariah May and Tony Storm, both offbeat characters, but very entertaining characters, and there's nothing like either of them in WWE, it doesn't feel like. Let's have a look. So Jeff Jarrett came out next. The Jeff situation is interesting, and the crowd does seem to really appreciate him, which is really kind of nice seeing that. Like I've only switched. Jeff Jarrett was, again, I think Conrad Thompson did kind of said it back. You just fast forward Jeff Jarrett kind of in 99, 2000 or 98. Or even 95, 96, 97 as well, to be honest. But I like him. He actually comes across really well on the Conrad Thompson podcast, like a genuinely good person, really, and he wants the best for wrestling, he does. That's turned me a little bit towards Jeff Jarrett. It seemed naive of him to call out the Death Riders, though, on his own. Again, for like such a veteran, it feels like, why would you call out like all the most dangerous people? And it also potentially diminished the Death Riders as not being intimidating. Why is Jeff Jarrett coming out calling them out? Like, why is he brave enough to do that? The promo ending, I can't remember. Oh, in fact, actually, I think maybe Cesaro he came out, but the promo ending felt like a WWE 2K game promo. Cesaro agreed to give him a match, and if Cesaro loses, then he gets a shot at John Moxley's championship. I don't know why they do stuff like that. It feels very thin. And I think that John Moxley should be very annoyed at Cesaro for potentially putting his title on the line. Felt like poor character work at the end, though. Next one, Swerve Strickland, AR Fox. Standard match, predictable outcome, but did further the Ricochet story, which was, yeah, decent. So nothing massively good to say about that, nothing massively terrible. But I guess maybe the bad part, I think it was the bad part, was that did Prince Nana get taken backstage because he went and thought that he could fight with Ricochet? Don't do that. Don't call out the Death Riders if you're Jeff Jarrett. Don't try and take on Ricochet with scissors if you're Prince Nana. Don't do it. Seems a bit silly. Next one, Learning Tree promo, and it built Hobbs versus Big Bill. These matches interest me. Like, it's Hobbs and Big Bill, so it's not like headliners or anything like that, although Hobbs did have a title match. But it's the matches that have got no predictable winner. And I don't know, it's like seeing like where do they stand in the AEW kind of rankings. I find those matches really interesting. I don't know who should win. So yeah, I like those matches. Next one, MJF promo, where I believe he did come out with a good line about that wrestling doesn't love you anymore to Jeff Jarrett, which felt like a really good line, and kind of because wrestling does love Jeff Jarrett at the moment, like there is that nostalgia part for him, and we know that he's kind of coming towards the end. Good line. Then Hangman Adam Page came out, and again he got right in MJF's face, told him to get the F out, and yeah, Adam Page is the one for me. He's the most believably intense wrestler since Brock Lesnar, I would say, at the moment, which is obviously big. Big credit. Next one, Mercedes Moné. Mercedes Moné comes across like one of those WWE hyper arrogant females that don't really have a personality except for being arrogant, but they're all arrogant, so they all blend in, except for the fact that she got 4 belts, so that makes stands out a bit. And again, I think she spoke to Harley Cameron, and Harley Cameron's fantastic. Tony Storm and Harley Cameron, I already knew Tony Storm was fantastic, but Harley Cameron, yeah, super impressed. Next one was Jamie Hayter versus Julia Hart, and again, it was one of those where there's no, like the Big Bill and Powerhouse Hobbs, I don't know who should win, so I don't know who is supposed to be better than the other. So yeah, I was really into this match. Again, Julia singing a theme song seems so simplistic but very effective. Jamie Hayter won, which I was impressed with. A great match, and it's just interesting to see where Julia goes from here. Jamie promo after the match built back up Julia well, so I put good work all round. Like, Jamie Hayter won, but yeah, it didn't really take away from Julia, which was good. But I did make a note in this, how often, because there was a couple of holds that they used, a couple of submission type moves. Don't really feel like when I watched Smack or Raw and NXT, I can't remember any holds being in there. Maybe there was and I just missed them. But yeah, it felt like they were missing holds because they were effective. Next one was a House of Black promo, and they said there's no leaders anymore, which something's going on with Malachi Black. I don't know if he's left or what. It felt weird though that they did that and the commentators then addressed it just after the Julia match, because they said that this was recorded earlier in the day, but it felt like there was like, I don't know, it felt like that should have been before the Julia match, maybe, I don't know. Next one was Cole versus Pac. So Adam Copeland, now Cope, sorry I said Cole versus, I wrote Cole there, it's auto corrected. Good match, but I could never see Pac winning cleanly. So unlike Bill and Hobbs and Julia versus Jamie Hayter, I feel like I know who is supposed to win that match, so it's a bit different. I couldn't ever see Pac winning, so it didn't really feel like an impactful main event. Can't remember the last time I saw Pac lose cleanly though, which indicates it might be like an interference type thing, but it wasn't. Cope just won clean. It was a good match, a very good solid match, but it didn't feel big enough. I feel like they missed a trick with this one, and I feel like they should have had Private Party versus Hurt Syndicate as tag titles on the main event. Not sure of the Jay White link. I don't know why Jay White came down afterwards, because there was a beatdown, but it did build up Jon Moxley versus Adam Copeland. But on that, and I've put a couple of notes afterwards, I don't know when is Jon Moxley versus Adam Cole? Is that Grand Slam? When is Grand Slam? I don't know when Grand Slam is. So it doesn't feel like they do a good job. I don't know what the next pay-per-view is. I know what Grand Slam is for TV one, but I don't know what the next pay-per-view is. That doesn't feel right when you've just watched the 2 main weekly shows. Something feels a bit off with that. Then next we've got SmackDown. I know this is a lengthy video, I won't do them all this long, I promise. But just watching it new to start with, there is maybe some extra notes to kind of add in. So again, shots outside the arena feels like that it's an event and the event's doing very good. Cody interview. Before this, I said that I thought like I really needed more just an interview with a mic interviewing Cody, and they did it. So good. Happy with that. But they're building up Cody Rhodes versus Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens got no chance at the Royal Rumble, so that automatically takes a lot of steam. It's fairly entertaining, the build-up, but he ain't got any chance whatsoever. And they just did the match on the last Saturday night's main event, I think. So Not excited for it in the slightest, really. But it will probably be, it's a ladder match, it'll be entertaining. Next one, our first match, is Motor City Machine Guns versus Pretty Deadly. There was an unskippable break. I was watching it on my iPad, and on my TV, I could fast forward them "We'll be back soon" things that are pretty annoying. But on my iPad, I couldn't. It was on Netflix. I can't skip those. So before they got in the first match, it was 20 minutes in, and I'd only seen Cody Rhodes for about 5 minutes at this point, it felt like. So I was a bit like, oh, slow start. But saying that, you're watching a video that's 35 minutes long now about this. And these two teams, but it felt like it was very NXT TNA. I never really watched the Motor City Machine Guns. I know they are very highly regarded, but it felt a lot less than AEW at this point. Motor City Machine Guns versus Pretty Deadly. And again, it felt like it felt kiddish. It felt like they're appealing to the kids with these teams, but they're wrestling on a ring mat that's got a hard cider advert on it, which felt a bit strange as well. But well executed match and great move timing that I've put from that one. I didn't really know. I don't know what the stakes were in it though, so it didn't feel great. Then a KO promo, Kevin Owens promo, which led to a Jimmy Uso match purely because he said that Kevin Owens talks too much. So we're now nearly an hour in, and we've just had one tag match, and we've got a main event that's set up because Jimmy Uso thinks that Kevin Owens talks too much. Again, felt a bit WWE 2K video game type setup for stuff. Not great. Next one, we had Chelsea and Piper Niven versus B-Fab and Mission. Worst match so far, no stakes or build up, and again, it felt very second rate. Then we had the announcement of Carmelo Hayes versus Damian Priest that was announced on the spot. So the second match in a row in quick succession that was just announced on the spot. So not very impressed so far, though it's nothing wrong with that match. But it's just the announce, oh well, there'll be this tonight, there'll be that tonight. So it just felt a bit strange, that one. Then Charlotte Flair, a video package. She's entering the Rumble. That feels pretty big. Next one was a Tiffany Stratton promo, who was then interrupted by Rhea Ripley, who was then interrupted by Nia Jax, who again stood out. And again, I really didn't like Nia Jax. She's got big heat on her at the moment, though, which, yeah, she's doing a pretty good job as a heel. She was then interrupted by Naomi and Bianca Belair, who felt a bit cringy. Then interrupted by Liv Morgan. Fantastic headbutt by Rhea Ripley on Liv Morgan, well, that stood out to me. And then they cut to an advert as Nick Aldis was on his way to the ring to presumably sort out all these interruptions. And then when it cut back after the advert, the bell was ringing for a 6-woman tag match. And I was like, hey, what's happened here? So now we're approaching 1.5 hours into the show, and we're on for the third low-stakes tag match in a row. That's poor. That's quite poor. We do have Rhea Ripley, and we've got some names in this one, but there's no stakes. So there's no if you win, this happens. If you lose, this happens. And Tiffany Stratton disappeared. No idea where Tiffany Stratton is. She was there before the advert, and then the bell rang, and she just disappeared. And Liv got the pin. So yeah, not a bad match. Pretty good match, to be honest. But didn't really mean a throwaway match. Nobody's going to remember it in a couple of weeks' time. So yeah, 1.5 hours of my life feels like it's gone on 3 kind of low-rate tag matches. Next one was, doesn't get too much better. We've got Johnny Gargano versus Apollo Crews. It feels like, I don't know. This feels very B show so far. And the reason for this, I'm putting on that Saturday night main event is coming up essentially. So, but the 4th match in a row with no stakes. But it did have a small backstory from the week before though, and great to see Apollo get a win because I don't think I've ever seen him win anything. So that's pretty good. And I think there must have been interference with Motor City Machine Gun, because I've put Motor City Machine Gun remind me of slightly cooler high school PE teachers for some reason. Yeah, I don't know why I put that. And I did think as well, Apollo Crews should be in Hurt Syndicate, so it feels like he'd fit into that group quite nicely. But yeah, 4th match in, and we've got nothing noteworthy really. Next is where it does start to get noteworthy though. Tama Tonga, first Tama Tonga match I've ever seen. Or singles match at least, versus LA Knight. Great entrance promo. This feels like a noteworthy match, but we're 1 hour 40 in now. LA Knight wins clean, and then he's attacked by Jacob Fatu and saved by Braun Strowman, which built that match up, that kind of battle of the monsters up for Saturday night main event, so not too bad with that. Next one, Damon Priest versus Carmelo. Good match. Clean win for Priest. Happy with that. No problems whatsoever. Next one was KO versus Jimmy Uso. I was just a bit annoyed with how it was set up, so I was like, yeah, whatever. And again, Kevin Owens is going into the Royal Rumble as a challenger, so he's not, yeah, there's poor, and that was the main event. So that was it so far. In terms of, I did watch Saturday night main event, but I do have some random notes. WWE are building towards Royal Rumble and Saturday night main event, but AEW don't really seem to be building towards anything. They're building towards Grand Slam, kind of to an extent, but I don't really know what the card is. I don't know when Grand Slam is. Maybe I'll just miss that, but they've not advertised it too much, which feels not great really. It would be nice to know what the whole card is. And WWE are also promoting WrestleMania in April. I have no idea what the next AEW pay-per-view is though. I did put the AEW female mid-card. It seems a mile stronger than the WWE mid-card or female mid-card. We're in WrestleMania season now, but AEW doesn't seem to have seasons, so it would be good. I think they need to split things up into segments and have different themed events rather than just a Full Gear, which is just an event with a different name to a different kind of thing. Like Forbidden Door has got like a theme to it. There's something different about it, but all the other ones just seem a bit the same. Let's have a look. WWE does a good job showing celebrity audience members. It builds it up as well. We treat lots at the moment. We treat lots of high quality free wrestling. You've already got Netflix as well, and there was more. Even though SmackDown was a bit of a pain, there was more good than bad wrestling. Now I've not got notes for Saturday night main event. I'm 41 minutes in. You're probably glad about that. But I thought that was excellent. Oh, it started off with, again, I watched that straight after SmackDown, and then it went from kind of boring SmackDown to Rhea Ripley versus Nia Jax, then the Battle of the Monsters, and then it was Gunther versus Jey Uso, which again, not that predictable. They're all predictable, but fantastic matches, and they felt like they had aura. Bron Breakker versus Sheamus, I felt like I knew who was going to win that one as well, but just fantastic. They had an event, like a magic about them. So in terms of, and I probably, this is maybe a bit of an anti-climax, from worst to best in terms of this week, I've got worst SmackDown, then NXT, then Raw, so WWE are the worst so far. Then I've got Dynamite, and then Collision was the best of the regular weekly TV shows. So AEW beat WWE to that point, but then Saturday night main event was my favourite show of the week, though. That was the most consistent show. I felt like it probably didn't have as good a wrestling as Collision, but it felt like a really big magic maybe a bit too far, but a big event. I've seen some criticism of it online being like it was predictable and that. I don't mind that. It's not going to be a huge surprise every week, but there was matches I wanted to see, and they all delivered. So people that stood out to me this week. So we've got from WWE, I've got 2 from WWE and 2 from AEW. Rhea Ripley and Jacob Fatu, definitely their cards I think should either maintain value or rise in value, especially Jacob Fatu. And then from AEW's side, they haven't got that aura at the moment. It doesn't feel like it's the big events, but Hangman Adam Page, I think he's in really, really good at the moment. And Kenny Omega, he's come back, he's got that aura about him, he looks fantastic, he looks like he's gonna, he's not lost a step. So Kenny Omega, Hangman Adam Page for me. I didn't know it was going to go 45 minutes. Thank you so much for watching. If you stayed all the way till the end, yeah, thank you very much for that. Hopefully the next one I'm going to try and cut it down massively in terms of the timings. But yeah, thanks for watching.